Two of my cheap grocery type things I'm doing is I'm making waffles, and I'm also making black beans in the crock pot. So for the waffles, I used a recipe that I found on Pinterest. I will link that down below. This is what they look like. I just go ahead and put them on this cooling rack so that I can stack them up and then stick them in the freezer. Here's mine that I'm gonna have. I just added butter on mine. I'm putting chocolate chips in half of them for Johnny, and these can go right in the toaster if you cut them in half. They fit really nicely in our toaster. They also can just pop in the oven really quick. And since I'm doing this over here, making my waffles, I moved the crock pot over here, and I do need to wipe this down on the outside. I'm just making the beans in the crock pot, and what I did was I soaked the beans in water in the crock pot overnight, then rinsed them really good, filled the crock pot back up with water, and I just have it on low, and I will check these at the end of the day and see if they're done. And here is my waffle bounty. I think there are 7 sets of waffles, so 14 big waffles for breakfast during the week. I would eat this with fruit, so I would just have like a half of one of these waffles, and then the little piece I used the rest of the batter for that. This morning we each had 2 big waffles, so to put these in the freezer, divide them where they have the line, cut them in half, and then just stick them in the freezer so I can just pull out 1 or 2 of these at a time depending on if my husband's having breakfast with us or not, and Olivia can have a piece of mine. And then we'll have them with fruit. So it's a really nice, easy breakfast. I can just pop these in the toaster or in the oven really quick, and we've got homemade breakfast. I ended up doing a double batch of that recipe, so I ended up with quite a bit of waffles just from one recipe, and I just doubled it. This is going to be my cheap and easy dessert. There's no real exact measurements here, but I went ahead and got my stuff out to make dirt, and it's basically just pudding, whipped cream, and Oreos. I stuck the Oreos in a food processor. I used like one of the rows out of an Oreo pack, food processed that, and then I made my chocolate pudding. It's just a box of chocolate pudding. I think this is the chocolate fudge flavor. I did 1 3/4 cup of milk instead of the full 2 cups of milk to make it a little bit thicker. I added in all of my Oreo crumbs to my chocolate layer, and then I'm going to add the whipped cream into this half, and then I'm just going to layer the 2 inside these cute little dishes here. This is what they look like. I didn't make them super fancy or anything. You could definitely use piping bags if you wanted to make the layers look really nice. You could also layer some of the crumbles between the layers. Just use half of the whipped cream and make that layer a little bit smaller than it was. It ended up being a lot of the whipped cream layer. And then this was what I had left. And if you wanted to, go all out, you could put Oreo crumbs over the top and put some gummy worms in it and make it look like legit dirt. The soup probably doesn't look very appetizing, but it is broccoli cheese soup. It's just very liquidy. I did not end up using any kind of recipe, so I just kind of winged it and it ended up really, really runny. But I ended up cooking the broccoli in chicken broth and then adding some half and half, some regular milk, Olivia's over there playing, and adding some pepper and salt. And I think that was it. Oh, I added a little garlic powder. And so it just ended up being a little bit runny. I had a block of sharp cheddar that I shredded and then mixed in with the soup to make it cheesy and creamy. And then I just added some shredded cheese, so you can see some of my cheese shreds there. So it doesn't look very appetizing, but it is actually really, really good. I've had it for 2 days now, and I have enough for tomorrow too. Tonight for dinner, I just made ravioli with some vegetables. These are just vegetables from a frozen vegetable mix bag. I sauteed them in olive oil with garlic powder, salt, pepper, onion powder, and red pepper flakes. So it's a little bit spicy. The raviolis are just from the freezer section at the grocery store. These ones are beef. Today's meal is just a freezer clean out meal. So we had some leftover frozen things. I got some leftover chicken fries from our date nights we had at home. Some beer battered fish. Olivia does not like the beer battered ones, so I still have a bunch of those to eat. Then some jalapeno poppers that were left over from that date night. And I also made some veggies. This is a half of a bag of frozen stir-fry veggies with a little bit of zucchini and squash that I had left in the freezer chopped up from another recipe. I didn't end up using all of it. And also some frozen kale. I just stuck a bag of kale in the freezer, and this was all that was left of that kale. I've been using it in other recipes here and there. I also made some black bean soup. This is just black beans I had made in the crock pot a while back and froze. I added some water, some chicken bouillon cubes, a little bit of cumin, salt and pepper, and then I topped it with some mild sauce that's just Taco Bell in the bottle mild sauce, and then some Colby Jack shredded cheese. So it's totally a random meal, but it's super cheap. Everything just came from our freezer, and I got a lot of things cleaned out of the freezer. Tonight's dinner is one that I totally pulled out of thin air. I thought that I had a thing of beef raviolis in the freezer. It turns out they are mushroom. Johnny does not like mushrooms at all, so those were a no-go for him. So I went ahead and made all of them for me, and then I made some whole wheat rotini for him. The sauce is the other half of that stir-fry mix that I used on last night's meal that'll be right before this part. It's that stir-fry mix plus a can of Rotel tomatoes with salt, pepper, and parsley and a little bit of water, and I just let it boil for a little while I was cooking the noodles, and this is going to be dinner. Tonight was ladies' night, and my husband went out with his coworkers for lunch, so he's having some lunch stuff, and I also cooked one of those frozen salmon fillets for him. I've got to wash his apple, but it's just apple, baby carrots, and salmon.